Alrighty, guys. You want to talk about porn? No, I'm dead serious. Do you guys want to talk about porn and how the United States, several states, are trying to ban porn and the things they're trying to call pornographic? I guess we're doing that. But first, let's talk about the fan art section and the weird things y'all have made me look at. Not weird as the Republican Party, but certainly still kind of strange. So, yeah, no, here is Jassaproxy saying, finished version, I think, of me going because I pick evil topics. Or Jassa saying because I pick evil topics. Why did you allow the GOP to corrupt the Blightsteel Colossus? I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at. It's Magic the Gathering themed, though, so I'm supposed to like it by default. The next one we have here is from Jet. Said, finished putting together a Cirrus doll by making her red necklace. I love Smart Doll so much, and Cirrus looks so nice. I don't have a suitable tail cuff, so she's wearing one of my spinner rings. Fair enough. Also, the tits on that doll are massive. Absolutely massive. Like, stupendously massive. Then again, at the same time, I realized that that's as massive as my character's tits in my VTuber avatar anyway. So I guess I can't complain about that. Anyway, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown on a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. That all said, let's go ahead and get into things. Things and stuff and stuff and things. Let's talk about porn, everybody. Let's talk about that. How the American war on porn could change the way you use the internet. Also, Agamotto, thank you for resubscribing for 20 months at Tier 1. Resubscribe for 20 months at Tier 1. Wait, does that mean that this is the 21st month you've subscribed? Or does that mean you just gave me 20 months of subscription? I don't know. I'm thankful either way, but I have no idea how big that number actually is, technically speaking. You'll have to tell me. I do not know. Santa the Red Joker, thank you very much for cheering as well. 21st month, I believe, says Sakura. Fair enough. How the American war on porn could change the way you use the internet. Papers, please, for millions of Americans accessing online pornography now requires a government ID, which could have global implications for the future of the web. I'm gonna be honest, I don't like porn requiring an ID. I don't. I think that that's just kind of dumb. Now, I understand on the one hand it is done to keep minors from accessing porn, and sure, that's going to function for 1% of minors, but I can also tell you when I was a 15-year-old kid, sorry, even younger than that, when I was like 13 years old and I discovered hentai for the first time, I found ways to find it. In fact, the reason that I got banned from using my computer as a kid was because in middle school, we straight up realized that there was a bunch of people who didn't have access to the internet yet. So we would all collectively, as a friend group, we would print off hentai and sell it at school. So my mom, like, walked in as I was printing off stuff. So I lost computer access for a very long time after that. But I say that to point out that it doesn't matter how many barriers you put up of inconvenience. People are going to find ways to handle this. It is important for people as individuals and for websites to put up some kind of barrier, at the very least a questionnaire. Hey, are you 18 or not? And now it is on the person if they lie. But all things considered, I don't think asking for a government ID for anything on the internet is a good fucking idea. I'm sorry, I like people being able to be at least somewhat anonymous on the internet. I don't like this era that we jumped in where everybody's real personas are there all the time, post MySpace and Facebook. But pay a visit to the website Pornhub while in the state of Texas today, and you may be disappointed. Instead of the usual content, you may find instead of the usual content on a pornographic website, you'll get just a single video. It features a fully clothed adult film star, Cherry DeVille, and she's discussing public policy. She says, as you may know, your elected officials are requiring us to verify your age before allowing you to access our website. Rather than asking its users to hand over photographic ID on every visit, she explains Pornhub and its network of sister sites have decided to simply block everyone in the state. Texans aren't alone. As you read this, a pornography blackout is rolling across the United States. In 2023, Arkansas, Mississippi, Utah, and Virginia all passed laws requiring age verification, and Pornhub blocked them all as the laws took hold. North Carolina and Montana following at the beginning of 2024. Legislation in Ohio, Kansas, Kentucky, and Nebraska sparked the same treatment in just the past few weeks, and with new laws scheduled to take effect, the shutoff could blanket the majority of the American South by this time next year. Pornhub, the fourth most popular website on Earth by some measures, may soon be blocked for 1 out of 3 Americans. I guess this is why a VPN is super helpful. It really is. I'm just going to be honest. What is the difference between somebody accessing Pornhub and finding porn on there, or like being on Twitter or Tumblr or any of the other websites that frequently feature porn and seeing the porn there, right? Like, I can understand there being a wall of access for indie porn, stuff that people have put on OnlyFans or something like that. But what I don't understand is a major website having to handle a huge influx of private data that I do not want them having access to, ever, so that they can, you know, not be legally culpable for a stupid law. I'm gonna be honest, the way things have worked for the longest time have been adequate enough. Make sure that there is a barrier there. Make sure that as a parent, if you are giving your kids access to things like a cell phone or a computer, use adequate parental controls. This should be a thing that is on the parents to solve, not on the website. Individual Discord holders should not have NSFW sections that are accessible by minors. Individual creators on smaller platforms should not be distributing porn to minors. Once you get to large distributors that hand it out willy-nilly, at that point, the age verification process that we've had in place is probably all that you need to do. Because once you get to those websites, that's the kind of stuff parental controls can be used for. But remember, the Republicans who have pushed this forward in every one of those states are the party of small government. And they've always been the party of small government. They're so small government, in fact, they want the government to have access to every part of your life. They want access to your medical records. They want access to your ID. They want access to all this shit. They want to control all of this shit. But they're the party of small government. They've never been the party of small government. They're fucking liars. The stated aim of these laws is to protect kids from accessing pornographic content amid concerns that it may cause harm by normalizing aggressive or violent sexual behavior and encouraging unrealistic expectations of sex. Do you know how you solve the unrealistic expectations of sex thing? You have comprehensive sex education. Kids are going to find porn. They will. They've been doing it for the last 100 years. Whether it is the modern way to find a porn on the internet, or it is the original ways that we found where nudie mags were found under dad's bed, right? This ability to have access to porn has been there from the start. And kids, especially, who really love pushing the boundaries of what should and shouldn't be allowed for rules, have been figuring out ways to get around these systems for ages. All you're doing is inconveniencing adults that want to use these websites in your areas. Or at the very least, you are lining the pockets of VPNs. Either way, the correct answer is to have comprehensive sex education. With comprehensive sex education, you can avoid the problem of having the wrong expectations during sex. Do you know how you figure out that sex in porn and sex in real life don't exactly work the same way? When you and your partner realized that your girlfriend sitting on top of you and bouncing on your dick didn't actually feel as great for her as you thought it did, because what she was having to do effectively was squats. You were basically making her do squats during sex. And while that is an entirely fun thing to do, and it is very hot, porn does give an unrealistic expectation of exactly how enjoyable that action can be outside of its ability to be useful as an exercise. So, again, sex education is good for this. Comprehensive sex education is good for this. I didn't get comprehensive sex education when I was a kid because I went to Pensacola Christian Academy, and they're very stupid when it comes to sex. But everybody around me in public school when I left Pensacola Christian Academy, they had comprehensive sex education, or at least as comprehensive as Florida allowed it to be. Stop says, remember, porn models are literally athletes. Yeah, imagine somebody says, hey, you did the squats 100 times for this shoot, but that wasn't enough. We need you to do the shoot again and 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 again until we get the shot right. People who actively act in porn, not indie porn where you filmed it with your girlfriend and threw it up on Pornhub because you thought it was kinky, but like people who actually do porn as a career tend to be incredibly physically fit because they have to be. Because for them, sex isn't a pump and dump thing, it's a goddamn triathlon. To date, 19 U.S. states have passed laws requiring pornographic websites to verify their users' age since 2022, and lawmakers have proposed age verification bills at the national level. The move towards requiring ID checks isn't limited to adult sites either. Other proposed regulations in the United States, UK, EU, and Australia, and parts of Asia may soon require age verification for social media and a variety of other platforms. Now, again, while I do not think that kids should generally be on social media, I will also say that I grew up in the era where kids were the main pilots of social media. Facebook wasn't readily adopted by adults as soon as it came out. MySpace was the arena of social media for the longest time. Twitter was mostly used and frequented by businesses to drop advertisements on things. So, no. So literally most of them are personal trainers and diet regimens to keep them in shape. Yep. What is the bro what the fuck going on for? Said sex is boring. Oh, okay. Anyway, whatever. So here's the thing with how these bills end up working. Again, it inconveniences basically everybody involved, but the way that we have had things working up until this point is fine when it is supplemented with actual sex education. I had a point that I was on, and then I read chat, and then it went out the window, so I have no idea. Let's see here. Depraved Ambient says, porn performers are performers. They are putting on a performance. They are acting. It's not real life. Yeah, they are. 110%. What I was going to say, though, is trying to restrict age access for social media doesn't really work very well. Again, I grew up in the era where the main proponents for social media were kids on MySpace. And by the way, can I just say, everybody said this at least once before, but I'll say it again. MySpace was infinitely better than Facebook in every way, shape, and form. There are kids who learned how to code HTML solely because they wanted to make their MySpace page that much cooler. There are Flash games that lived and died on people's MySpace pages. There are artists whose shit was discovered only because some random person popped on a person's MySpace page and that was the music playing in the background for that page. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I miss that era of the internet. I miss that era of the internet greatly. But we do live in a different era right now, and social media is a cesspool. But the regulations for social media probably shouldn't be on whether or not kids have access to it. Again, the kids are going to find ways to access that social media no matter what you do. They're going to just find workarounds. What this seems to be is a way to try to not properly regulate social media, because it is not properly regulated. Misinformation and disinformation flies everywhere off the wazoo, and algorithms and AI curate content to advertise to your eyes and brains, because ultimately websites like Twitter and Google, etc., are advertising platforms above all else. It is their monetization scheme. It is insane to me that instead of trying to better regulate these businesses, we have instead decided to throw that work onto the individual websites through heavy-handed legislation. But, you know, that's just me. Proponents say that it's no different from the ID check required to buy a pack of cigarettes, common sense safety efforts that will work as well online as they do in retail settings. Cherry Silling says it's very simple. A conservative think tank called the American Principles Project is what he's from. He says, we don't think kids should be able to access the amount of pornography that they're able to access today. Okay? I can agree with you. I don't think kids should be accessing that pornography. This is coming from somebody who grew up as a kid who accessed pornography. I don't think kids should be watching porn. At the same time, if you believe somehow in your naivete that you can stop them from accessing it wholesale, I'm sorry, but you have another thing coming. I remember being a kid finding ways to work around my friend's child lock. His parents had a child lock on his computer that prevented him from going to certain websites, prevented him from doing certain things on the computer. And while that's all fine and dandy, I remember that the particular child lock that was on it only prevented you from getting to those websites via Google. But if you knew the URL already, you could just type in the URL and it would take you to the website, and it was the one workaround. Now, in 2005, 2006 terms, yes, that was still a lot for a kid to be able to do, but all it required was one kid knowing the URL for a website they wanted to go to and then coming over to your house and going there, or telling you over the phone, or sending a text message that at that time costed 35 cents a text. Like, honestly, it is baffling to me how any of these protections ever worked to a degree, because we always found ways around them. And kids growing up with this technology, kids learning to use this technology from the moment that they are, basically born till now, they're going to be able to find these workarounds way faster than me or my generation ever did. And again, whether or not those workarounds are able to be found, it is the parents' responsibility to make sure that your kids are using the internet appropriately. I don't understand why the party that is so concerned with the parents' role in parenting are trying to play parent for the parents right now. It's baffling to me. Those who oppose the new rules say the laws are poorly designed and could even push people to darker parts of the internet, putting kids and adults in more danger. They also argue that repercussions of new legislation could have profound consequences for the future of the internet and the freedoms it affords. Let's be honest, between social media and pornography, that's probably the bulk of everyone's online activity, said Daniel Kahn Gilmore from the American Civil Liberties Union. Said, afterwards says, while few disagree that preventing children from accessing online pornography is a good idea, there are always some who feel that there are better ways of doing it than a blanket enforcement of age verification rules. Taken alongside the growing political debate about how best to regulate the online world and the technology platform that supports it, the internet seems to be at a turning point. Yup, it do. That it do. In a case brought on by a coalition including Pornhub's parent company, ALO, and the ACLU this year, the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to review the issue of age verification. There's no telling how the court will rule. In the meantime, access to pornography has become a mounting issue in the background of the U.S. presidential election. Donald Trump's pick for vice president, J.D. Vance, has said that in the past, pornography should be outlawed, and influential conservative think tanks are calling for a total ban on porn should Trump regain the White House. If the age verification movement goes unchecked, it's possible that you could be forced to tie your government ID to much of your online activity. Some civil rights groups fear that it could usher in a new era of state and corporate surveillance that would transform our online behavior. And yeah, so it is okay for people to have spaces where they are allowed to operate privately. It is okay for that to happen. And the internet is just an extension, a hyper-reality parallel to real life. We should be allowed to have those private spaces on the internet as well. But unfortunately, that's not really the case right now. It's slowly getting to the point where the government wants to, or at least our government, and when I say our government, I of course mean the Republicans in our government for the most part, though there are some Democrats who are stupidly on board with this, We are getting to the point where our government, in the way that I defined it, is trying to put a stranglehold on American citizens. All of the ways in which we can unite to talk about ideas in anything other than the people next to our own house, when we already live in a really atomized society to begin with, are slowly being stripped away. Can you imagine a kid who didn't realize they were being abused, but because they had access to the internet, realizes what child abuse is, that they are going through child abuse, and that there are ways for them to solve that child abuse, or at the very least, get out of that situation and be safe? That is a reality that many kids already face right now. Trying to remove all access to these areas for kids is not the safest thing possible. We've always had paranoia about children on the internet, even during the times of AOL Instant Messenger, where people would go on group chat rooms, and the conversation would be, if somebody tells you to go somewhere and hang out with them randomly on the internet, don't do it. I remember when dating websites first became a thing. I was on eSpin the Bottle as a kid. I mean, 15 years old, but still kid. And I remember that my first girlfriend was somebody that I met online on the website IMVU. And over time, me and this person ended up breaking up for a variety of reasons, most of which centered around me being a stupid kid, and them living in California, where there was really no way that I was ever going to be able to see them. Not at that point in time. I eventually met somebody in real life who became my first girlfriend, the girl that I ended up losing my virginity to, oddly enough, while the Pokemon theme was playing, actually. The fun fact about that. So, this person I met on the internet. And we hung out a few times. We hit it off very well, and then we dated for about 6 months or so. Went to my homecoming, and then we broke up shortly afterwards, because when you're a kid, that's what happens. So I can remember a very different attitude towards the internet, where not only was it more normal for people who were under the age of 18 to use dating websites, because that's how a lot of people ended up meeting, but at the same time, all of the paranoia about adults trying to get to kids through the internet, about trying to meet people on the internet. Nowadays, we meet people on the internet and hang out with them all the fucking time. Adult, kid, whatever. That doesn't mean that's necessarily the safest thing to do, especially for a kid. But, again, we live in a safer version of this. It's now no longer the shady AOL chat room where username something something 64 is the person you're talking to. Now it's somebody with an active Facebook profile with a face you can see, who we can just point out to the parents like, hey, these two people want to hang out. Maybe you should get involved in this particular conversation. Stop says, also, you could access NSFW through Movie Star Planet. They're going to try and require ID for a fucking shitty-ass RP chat room and dress-up game. So now, this all feels very alien to me because I grew up in a much more open version of the internet that didn't have all of this, and it didn't feel like it was necessary. It really didn't. Especially now, the era of the internet that we're in right now, where if people are interacting, you probably see it on Twitter. You probably see it on Facebook. Somebody sees it in a Discord. There's some kind of paper trail now that simply didn't exist during the era of AOL Instant Messenger. But I digress. Idiots want to ban porn. What are you going to do? Evan Greer says this is the canary in the coal mine. It isn't just about porn. She's the director for Fight for the Future, a digital rights advocacy group. Greer says age verification laws are thinly veiled ploys to impose censorship across the web. A host of campaigners warned that these measures could be used to limit access to not just pornography, but to art, literature, and basic facts about sexual education and LGBTQ+ life. This is actually true. So, if you remember in Project 2025, there's a section that talks about relabeling certain things like being trans as pornography. If we start going on a global ban of porn, which J.D. Vance wants to do, again, J.D. Vance is the vice president pick for Donald Trump, and that is something that he wants to do, which means by extension it's probably something that Trump would be okay with doing. Project 2025 wants to turn being transgender into what is considered pornographic. God, we're back to that conversation again about banning transgender people and what it looks like when you do that, when we look at the people connected to Trump and the actual conversations that are being had in the document that is 100% made by people who support Trump for Trump to utilize while he's in office, because they were the people who made what Reagan utilized when he was in office. God, we're back to this conversation again. Anyway, I'm not being petty about that. We're going to just continue on with the rest of this article. The other side of this says the porn industry is lying to you and being hysterical. Requiring porn sites to check users' ID is basic common sense. It's cheap and affordable, and it's been around for decades. It's a self-evident truth that kids should not have access to pornography, but even if it wasn't, some research suggests that early exposure to pornography is very harmful in children. Over a dozen United States have passed resolutions declaring that pornography is a public health crisis. A public health crisis of porn. How? How is pornography a public health crisis? How does that make any sense at all? That doesn't make any fucking sense at all. There is an article in here, at the very least, saying, should public health professionals consider pornography a public health crisis? Let's see if they have a conclusion in here. Let's see here. Calling something a public health crisis when it is not demonstrably so may result in unwarranted policy or funding shifts. For example, government agencies may spend money to convene experts for high-level meetings or require businesses of individuals to comply with unwarranted regulations. Moreover, pathologizing any sexualized behavior, including pornography use, has the potential to restrict sexual freedom and stigmatize, which is antithetical to public health. If the public health workforce wants to save its power to mobilize people with an acute threat to its imminent, reserving the phrase public health crisis for strategic select times is advisable. Pornography is not a crisis. Public health has much to offer to an ongoing analysis of pornography's effect on health, but it's not a crisis. But you got a fucking study was even linked there. It's not a goddamn crisis. This is insane to me. This whole conversation, this article was downloaded 12,833 times. That is nutty. That is crazy. And that is, I'm glad people are reading. I'm just glad people are reading. That's where I'm at here. There's a whole lot more in this article from the BBC. It's a very long and extensive one that goes further into whether or not this is a Trojan horse and more. I don't need to get into everything else in the article. I've basically said my piece on this. I do not think putting heavier regulations on individual users on the internet the way that legislators would like to do is a good idea, and I believe that it is a first step into actually banning pornography, as has been stated by J.D. Vance, who is the vice president pick for Donald Trump. I don't want to live in that world. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you think this video resonated with you, maybe share it to a couple friends. That all said, I'm gonna go watch some porn. Insert a video tagline here.
Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Mark Anthony, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full-time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full-time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.